Okay, so let's begin by talking a little bit about next week's uh, project. This is our last webinar, um, our last quiz, our last discussion board, our last activity this week, and the only thing we have left to do next week is our group assignment. So no more readings, no more nothing after after this week, except, hi Cindy, except
Hi.
for, hi, except for your group assignment. So as soon as you finish all those other things this week, all you have to concentrate on is your group assignment, your group project. We don't have a final per se. I consider your weekly tests your evidence that you can take a test. So just your group project is the one remaining assignment after this week. We do have, I think all of our groups are made now. I had not heard from, I think there were 4 people that hadn't gotten in a group yet. And so those people are defaulting into one group. Okay. So we've got Carrie and let's see, and Michelle G and Angela in a group. We've got Michelle B, Rachel, and is it Cindy in a group? And so then that leaves Natina, Natasha, Kelsey, and one more person. Oh, and Kyla in a group. Okay. Now, I don't know, nobody has sent that to me officially yet, but you are the 4 that didn't have partners yet. And so Kelsey contacted me today and said, do you want us to break into groups of 2 or groups of 4? And I prefer a group of 4 to a group of 2. So Natina, I think you're the only one from that group that's on tonight. So it's Kelsey, you, Natasha, and Kyla.
Yes,
okay.
Kelsey sent us an email to
Okay,
let us
good.
know about that.
Great. So y'all are ahead of me on that. You're already going and running with it. So good deal. Everybody, I hope, knows what to do with that assignment. You're going to work on what's the word I'm looking for? What y'all are doing right now? Hopefully starting on staff development kinds of things. Michelle Bowman has already gotten started on that because she's working as an art facilitator with Mansfield ISD. So she started this week. We were just talking a minute ago about that. Carrie Murphy, have you already started your work calendar? You're muted, dear. I can't hear you.
We had 2 comp days yesterday and Monday, and then official first day is Monday, the 3rd.
Okay.
So, but we've been working on getting presentations ready for the training.
Okay, so getting things revved up. Anybody else already started? I hate it when school starts in July or when work days start in July, but some school districts do that. Maybe the rest of you will start next week, or maybe you're lucky enough to start after that. Okay.
Yeah, sweet.
Are any of you graduating with your master's degree next week? Anybody? Nobody. Okay. Good. Because if you were, I'd have to have all your grades in early, and we don't want to have to do that. So the more time I have to finish my grading, the better off we are. I need as many minutes as possible. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't have anybody that needed those early to graduate. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got these last 3 chapters to talk about for a few minutes. I'm not going to keep you very long tonight, but let's talk for a few minutes about assistive technology, transition, and early childhood kinds of things. So let's see. I can't remember which one of those is first in the book. Let's just talk about early childhood topics a little bit first. I know that there is a question on your quiz about the IEP that we have for children that are in, and when I say early childhood programs, I don't mean early childhood at school. I mean early childhood before you ever get to school. I mean ECI kinds of programs. So birth to 3. When I'm saying early childhood right now, I'm talking birth to 3. So what is the name of the IEP for children birth to 3?
IFSP. Yeah.
Okay, y'all are gonna probably have to work off of one. Okay, work off of one microphone. Okay. Say, I think you said IFSP. Is that right, Michelle? And that is correct. And does anybody else know what IFSP stands for off the top of your head? Do you know what an IFSP, what that acronym means? Okay, it means, and Michelle may know, and I just have frightened her into not speaking now. But an IFSP is an individual or an individualized family service plan. Y'all are gonna have to not, you're gonna have to keep one mic on only, okay? Because if you're in the same room, you get that effect, that super reverberation. Okay, so an individualized family service plan. And the reason is because between the time a child is born and the time they turn 3 and are eligible for school programs is we really do want to involve the family. And the family is even named as, participants in the individual goals and objectives. So the IFSP is what we call the plan for children up through their 3rd birthday when they're working with ECI. I don't know if any of you have had children who of your own, perhaps, who have been eligible for a plan like that. My grandson, Wesley, Meredith's, who you met a few weeks ago, Meredith's oldest, was eligible for speech services through ECI when he was little. And I got to see one of those from the perspective of a grandmother. Of course, I've seen many others as they transitioned into school, but it took on a whole new meaning when it was, one of my own in our family. But what they were looking for was what I would consider just a speech delay, not really a speech disorder. And so that brings me to 2 things. First of all, that IFSP looks very different goal-wise and objective-wise than an IEP looks once we get to school. The goals and objectives are much broader. And the second thing is that the disability doesn't have to be nearly as pronounced or profound or what we might even call serious or disabling, for it to be noted and eligible for services up through age 3. And the thing that makes that difficult, I think, for us on the school end of the spectrum is that oftentimes parents then who have been served birth through 3 for their children bring their kiddos to school for screeners or other kinds of services after their child has been served, and then they don't qualify for services once they get to the public school setting because the qualifying conditions are much more, and the qualifying standards are much more stringent once children get to the public school setting. And parents have said, well, no, hang on. And my child has a disability. They did over at ECI. And we say, well, no, they don't here. Well, how can you have a disability here and you don't over there? Well, I hope that maybe you have all learned through your coursework up to this point that unfortunately that's the way it works. From school to school, sometimes you can have a disability in one setting and not have it in another. And certainly the folks who have already gone through the diagnostician testing classes have learned that the standards vary from place to place. And that doesn't seem right, doesn't seem fair, but that is the way it is. And so we need to learn to explain to parents, now, not ordinarily, are more significantly impaired students in this low incidence disability category that we've been studying this summer, but usually our more high incidence disability kinds of categories, frequently the standards, the more stringent standards that we have with the 3 to 5 population are such that kids who did qualify with ECI don't qualify once those kids make the crossover, the transition to the public school setting. And we've got to learn how to explain that in tangible, realistic, and acceptable terms to families. I think speech is one of those that that it happens in pretty regularly, and there are some others as well. That whole developmental category is another one that that happens a lot in. A lot of times kids will get a developmental eligibility with ECI, and then they'll come to the public school setting, and we don't have a developmental category in Texas for kids who are 3 to 5. And so we've got to find something else. And oftentimes we put speech on it, and speech will work for a little while, but districts vary in the way they want to serve kids in speech. And so some will just do direct services for walk-in speech only, and not give kids a full program, like what we would call a PPCD program, or an ECSE, an early childhood special education program. So it gets complicated, and this is where you really need to know the types of programs that your school district offers and what their philosophy is on the types of services they give to kids. You don't want to be offering the sun, the moon, and the stars to a family and then find out that your district doesn't, quote, do it that way. We'll talk a little bit more about that kind of thing maybe in a little bit. So any questions about early childhood? Any questions about that chapter or that population? Usually with our more significantly impaired children, those kinds of diagnoses are going to be made very early on, if not at the hospital at birth, then sometimes prior to birth, many times these days prior to birth, or at birth, or soon after birth, or in the first few months of development, when milestones are not met. Those diagnoses are made. And so usually long before children get to the public school setting, those diagnoses have already been made. And so most of those children, when they get to a public school setting, whether you're teaching children at the age of 3 or beyond that, you can feel pretty sure that that diagnosis is already pretty stable and intact, and oftentimes made by medical professionals, but not always the case, but usually the case. There are a few rare circumstances where that may not be the case, but usually it is. So any questions on that chapter? Okay, let's talk a little bit about assistive technology. There are several questions on your quiz about assistive technology. I think maybe the one thing the one point I really want you to get about assistive technology is that just about anything, and I think there's a question that even says this, I think the word any is in there, almost anything can be called assistive technology. And I think that's weird. I've always thought that was weird, but it's true, and it's the way it is in the world that we work in. I don't know why they want to call it technology, because to me, technology kind of needs to be plugged in, or Wi-Fi or something. It needs to be technical, but the folks out there in the AT world are very insistent that it doesn't need to be technical to be assistive technology. I had an AT specialist years ago who said to me, and this has always stuck with me, that AT can be as simple as a pencil grip. A pencil grip is AT. Well, to me, a pencil grip is a little piece of rubber that you slide on to your pencil. And that's not very, that's just, to me, that's just a learning device that you would do with any kid. But that's AT. So to me, that's not very technical, but that's what our AT folks want us to get through our heads, is that is AT. It's assistive. So that makes it AT. So the point here is that if it's assisting, then that is AT for kids with disabilities. That's assistive technology. And so there is a question exactly like that. What is the definition of assistive technology? And I believe the question reads, any item. And that's the answer. Any item can be considered assistive technology, as simple as a pencil grip. So, and as complicated as, something very, very complex, that is more, technical in nature, a smart board with all of the parts that go along with that. Or if you've already looked at this week's videos, there's a smart desk as one of those, and then all the other things that go along with that. The other video that we watched this week has a whole lot of what you would consider lower tech. They're still tech, in my opinion, but they're lower tech. And some of them may be things that you have used in your classroom. There's a Big Mac switch, which most of us are very familiar with. There's, and many of us have those kind of toys for our own kids at home, where you push a button and it makes, or a switch, and it makes a toy do something. There's a tech speak device, which many of us are familiar with. And then there are a couple of different communicators that the teacher demonstrates, that have, a choice board where the child can touch the boxes, and the pictures allow the machine to give a response when the child can't do so orally themselves. And so she demonstrates in the video a number of those different devices that I think are very common in today's special education classrooms. Many of you are familiar with Boardmaker, and Boardmaker is what's used with many of those devices that she demonstrates. And those are on the lower tech end of the spectrum, but still higher tech than a pencil grip, or many of the devices that we would consider, I guess, no tech on the technical spectrum. So who is AT for? Well, it's for every child. I guess it's for every child anywhere, but particularly in the special ed world, we've got to consider it when. When do we consider AT?
At every IEP meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. And I believe
wrote a paper on it.
Thank you. And that's a question on the test. And so you'll get that one right, I'm sure, Natina, and I hope everyone else will after this conversation. You've got to consider it at every meeting, certainly at every annual meeting. But it has to be considered for every student with a disability. And then for students that are going through transition, what areas of transition, are you going to consider it for? Is it just for academics? And this is my main point here. Is it just for academics? No, it's not just for academics. You're going to consider it for rec and leisure. You're going to consider it for community-based instruction. You're going to consider it for any area of the curriculum, any area at all in which the student is going to be involved. So AT is for anywhere or any area in which the student finds themselves. And wherever it's appropriate is where you will decide to use AT as an art committee. And Natina, I don't know if you would know this or not from your study for your paper, but do you happen to know, and I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but maybe you do know the main reason why schools reject AT. Do you happen to know that?
Funding.
Exactly. You got that one right. And that's on a test on the question this week too. The main reason schools reject AT is because of cost. Now, is that a legitimate reason?
No. Because
Can
it
you
should be
reject
whatever-
anything? Can a school, and this is a great question, just a general diagnostic question for anybody that wants to be a special educator of any sort. Can a school district reject any service because of cost? No, no, and hell no. The answer is no. You can't ever reject anything because of cost. If anybody in the ARD meeting ever says we cannot afford that, I mean, you have just committed the cardinal sin. That's the cardinal sin. And the parent can just go right out then and file due process against the school and win, hands down, because you just cannot ever say we can't afford it. Because the theory, and maybe the school district really can't afford it, but the theory is that the school district should be able to afford anything. Okay, or at least attempt to, or find a workaround, or look for the funds for anything. You never make an unequivocal statement, we haven't the funds, we cannot afford that service. You just don't do that. You look for a way to provide an appropriate service or a comparable service or something that's going to provide what the child needs. And you know, maybe the parent is asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars, and it is too much money, but you don't ever say it's because it costs too much. You find the reason why maybe they don't need it at this level, but we can do something that's more appropriate. Maybe they don't need that full-time assistant because that's not because it's too expensive, but because it's not socially appropriate for a child to be isolated with an adult all day. That's why they don't need a one-on-one person, not because we can't afford it. And the thing is, districts do have a lot of federal money. They have federal money that's appropriated for students with disabilities. And sometimes our general ed administration, our superintendents, our principals, those folks don't want to recognize that some of those dollars that they'd like to be using for general ed initiatives are special ed exclusive dollars. And I had an administrator a number of years ago who was always trying to hound me to use my special ed dollars for general ed things. Well, that's purely illegal as well. You cannot use special ed dollars for general ed causes. You simply cannot do it. And you've got to, special ed directors have to make a report every year that says what they've used all those dollars for, and it can't be general ed stuff. So you've got to use your dollars for general ed students, and you can't use it all for personnel either. You've got to use it on materials and other kinds of things that go directly to students. So there are dollars for that. Now you have to use it wisely. And I think special ed directors have just about the hardest job out there. They've got to use, they've got so many hard jobs, and then they get blamed for an awful lot of stuff. And you notice I'm not doing that job anymore. I'm getting paid less money to do something that's a lot more fun. But the special ed director's job is a very, very difficult job. And it's a pretty thankless job. But there's a whole lot of rules and regulations to adhere to, and lots of places to make mistakes. And you make a mistake, and then you know, there's a lot of repercussions for mistakes. So I feel sorry for anybody that has that job right now. And this is a difficult time to have that job. But there are dollars for those kinds of things, but they've got to use their dollars wisely. But there's also, you know, people who ask for things that are not necessarily in the best interests of children. And so we want to help guide people toward good use of dollars, appropriate use of dollars, and teach our teachers at the same time. Remember, I keep telling y'all that you're going out there with your master's degree to help people at that next level. And don't just think like a teacher, even if you're going to continue to be a teacher. Don't just think like a teacher. Think at that next level up, and help people learn the things that you don't say, and don't ever say, we can't afford it. Think about the reasons why we might want to use our dollars differently. So let's see. Anything
I have
else?
a question on that. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
When I used to go through my art meetings, which we didn't have a special ed director, we had the principal, and she would promise stuff, but then she would never actually buy it, because
Yeah.
she said that as long as the parents think that we're buying it, then that's half the battle. And it was kind of like, well, yeah, but that would actually help in the classroom. So it was kind of like, okay, where do I go from here?
Well, see, I think that's a horrible thing for a principal to say. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's a horrible thing.
Mhm.
I also think that, no. By the way, y'all, Rachel has a new job as a special ed life skills teacher, so we need to say congratulations.
Thank you.
But that takes me to another point I want to say about Rachel's position. I hope you don't mind me talking about this a little bit, do
Oh, no,
you?
it's okay.
Okay.
No, I appreciate it.
Rachel's new job, and Carrie, I think you might be able to help Rachel a little bit, okay? Because Carrie has been a life skills teacher, and both Michelle's have been. So you've got several resources right here that I know of. Okay. But Rachel went into her classroom, and she's got a bare room with nothing there. And she's never taught life skills before. And so I was talking to Meredith, my daughter, about this a little bit. And she said, Mom, that's what I did over and over. And I've, taught in several different schools, different districts, and you go in and there's nothing there. She said, because again and again, they put the least experienced teacher in the class that's the hardest. And she said, they put them in there and there's nothing in there. And so then the teacher has to stock the room herself. And then when she leaves, she takes it all with her. And she said, then the next person that comes in has to stock the room herself. And then when she leaves, what does she do? She takes it all with her. And I said, but this is horrible. And I know this is what happens because I was there myself many, many years ago. I stepped into a behavior classroom like that, and there was not one single thing. It was even in I think I told y'all this, it was in a science lab, and they had stools, and we were expected to stay in there all day long. Stools at lab tables at a middle school.
Wow.
All day long. 10 boys and me. And I was 22 years old. Middle school boys and me, 22 years old, 10 of them, one of me. It was horrible. And I didn't even have any materials. I mean, not even a book. There was not even a book.
Mm.
It was horrible. And needless to say, I didn't stay because it was horrible. But I was expected to have all of my own stuff. And that's insane. And so what do they expect for young teachers? They're not going to stick around. Or they're going to bring, they're going to go out and spend their own money out of their little paltry paycheck and stock their own room. And then what happens when they leave? They're going to take it all with them. But there is money for a classroom. The taxpayers, and particularly a special ed classroom, there is federal money to stock that room. And And it is criminal, in my opinion, for that room not to have something in it, because there is federal money sitting somewhere. And either somebody has misappropriated it and put it in somebody else's room. There's no reason why a special ed classroom should have nothing in it, in my opinion. So I'd be squawking a little bit if it were me. But-
Rachel, where are you gonna be?
Sorry, what?
Where are you gonna be?
Meridian, it's a kindergarten through 5th grade position. And then I found out a few minutes ago that I'm actually going to have a little girl that has schizophrenia. So I found out that I may have behavior issue children in there
nice.
too. And I was like, oh, well, that wasn't told to me during the interview and anything. They just kind of left that part out. So I'm like, this is going to be a little interesting.
Yeah. Well,
The first-
Meredith does want to talk to you, and I'm sure you could
Okay.
probably get some ideas for centers and sensory stations and things like that from some of the girls on the screen. So if y'all
Okay.
want to give Rachel some ideas, this is an elementary position. Anything you can help her with, I'm sure she would appreciate. So we'll move
Very
on.
much.
There's a question on your test about Universal Design for Learning, UDL. Remember that UDL is an accessibility issue, okay? It's about helping kids, everybody have accessibility. So we shouldn't have to know what everybody's disability is. We should just be helping everybody have accessibility, okay? So the word accessible is not in the question, but as you read the question and the choices, you should be able to discern that UDL, Universal Design for Learning, is making things accessible, and that's the point, okay? So accessibility is the point of UDL. So let's talk a little bit about transition. I included for you this week the U.S. Department of Ed document. I think it's a pretty lengthy document. Their document about transition, and I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to look at it yet or not. Has anybody had a chance to look at it? Okay, what'd you think?
I thought it was pretty vague or broad, and then I got stuck around like page 30 to 35.
Yeah,
It just kept talking about higher education, which
Okay.
is great, but there's a lot of kids that's not their plan, and so I just feel
Okay.
like there's not enough for
Okay.
those kids.
you have exactly the same response to it that I have to it. Now, somebody in last year's class said to me, well, Dr. Kevin, this document, is not nearly as good as the one that TEA puts out. And I haven't looked at TEA's lately. Has anybody looked at TEA's transition document lately? Carrie, have you? I can't hear you.
Just the community resources page that we have to put out. So
Okay.
like bits and pieces, but not the whole thing.
I haven't looked at their document lately, and it may be good. This
I mean,
department,
I think it's important. It's something definitely for all of our secondary students that we really have to look at, since I deal with transition. Yeah,
I think this U.S. Department of Ed document is, number one, too long. I think that, like Michelle just said, she starts tuckering out about page 30. I kind of did too. And I think it's designed I know there are kids all over the spectrum of ability out there in special ed across our country. And so we want higher ed to be an objective for a lot of our kids, and for a lot of our kids it is. But what about those kids for whom higher ed is not the goal? Where are those kids in this document? And I didn't see a lot in this document for those kids or those young adults. And so I would like to see more focus from the national level and certainly at our state level, and there may be a lot more of that at the state level, more of a focus on job training, on day habs, on sheltered workshops, on things that are appropriate for everybody, because kids that are going to go into higher ed don't need a whole lot of transition help. You know, I mean, I know they need some, and I'm not shorting them on that, but kids that are going to be successful in higher ed, well, I would just like to see a document that looked at kids that are not going to be successful in higher ed. Kids that need something completely different from that on the other end of the disability spectrum, from the kids who have the hope of going into higher ed. So,
Well, but there has been a push lately, and there are several institutions that, like colleges, I think Blinn has one. I know Weatherford had one for a long time. A&M has one. I thought that
Mhm.
was through Blinn. It's not, it's on A&M campus.
It's actually on A&M
Okay.
campus.
That are geared toward those ID students.
yes,
So,
and I think that's growing. In fact, I'm working with a Tarleton doctoral student. I'm on her doctoral committee, and she's actually an employee at Baylor and lives in Waco. And that is the focus of her dissertation. And that is university programs for students with disabilities. And not just, you know, not just those borderline, you know, kids that are going to be high achievers, you know, but those kids that are more that are more needy with disabilities. And so it's interesting to watch her as she's coming along with her proposal and so forth.
The one thing, see, it's not gonna work. Okay, the one thing.
Okay, you're gonna have to turn it on. We can't hear you at all.
Okay. The one thing that about the A&M program that they have, the kids got really excited for it, but it's written at such a higher level of understanding that our children got bogged down and they just wanted to quit.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
So it was a work program that they were bringing down to the high school level to get them ready for when they went up to the college level. And they had a program at the college level that they could go into. And out of I think we did 10 girls that could possibly fit into that program. I think one actually qualified.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was everything we could do to get her to understand what was going on, because it was just written, you know, just that much above her head that
Yeah.
we had to do everything, you know, rewording and just a lot of social skills to get her to understand and
Mhm.
that kind of thing, and picture cues. And it was just that much more difficult. And the other girls were like, I won't ever, no, I can't, no. They just automatically shut down.
Yeah.
And I like to see it brought down a little bit more to where you can bring them up easier.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my thoughts.
Yeah. I think it's probably hard to hit that sweet spot where it works for enough people to make it viable and is still, you know, a good program. I bet that's a huge challenge. Okay, what other questions do we have tonight? We've touched on each of the 3 chapters: early childhood, assistive technology, and transition. Any questions about anything else before we call it a night?
I have a question. So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
recently got told I have to change job and be a ECSC teacher.
Ooh,
And I've never done that in my life. I've been a behavior teacher before, and I was also a resource teacher. And so I understand the concept of what I'm doing, but I don't quite know what I'm doing.
are you a mother?
I am. I
So
have 2
you've
kids.
changed diapers before
Yes.
and you'll be doing that again.
Tina, I did ECSE, so if you'll get in touch with me, I'll help you as much as I can.
Oh,
Sounds
that is
wonderful, Cindy.
so kind of you, Cindy.
Oh, it's not a problem.
And isn't that nice that we've got folks in here that can help each other out?
Cause I'm like, I was struggling. I'm like, really? This? I don't want to do this. And I mean, I pushed to try to do anything but it, but
I did the same thing, but once you're in there, you are gonna love it and you're gonna wonder why it took you so long to get in there.
Well, that's great. Okay, you two connect and Michelle's up there shaking her head. She's a high school person. Michelle, you just turn your camera off, okay? Turn your camera off. We want, I was mostly kidding there, Michelle. But we want Cindy to encourage Natina. We do not want you to discourage her.
Those high school people just don't understand.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
It's a different world.
I'm an elementary kid. I was started out as elementary and I did that and I'm more sarcastic and stuff and
You can't be sarcastic with little ones. They don't get it.
no, you gotta love on them and then you wanna go home and love on your own kids. At the time, I wanted to love on my kids more than I wanted to love on everybody else's, so I had to change.
All right, girls, what else? Anything? Natina, good luck to you, okay?
Good luck to everybody.
Yeah,
thank you.
all right. I'll look forward to your presentations next week.
What day are they due?
Oh, let's see. What do you think?
Sorry.
Is Wednesday okay? How does Wednesday work? I think I need them by Wednesday so I can get them graded. So
Oh, wait, no.
we'll make them do Wednesday night at midnight, okay? I think that's the 4th, okay? All right. Then we're gonna sign off for tonight.
No bonus?
Oh, let's do a bonus. Let's see. The name of what's the name of the simple switch that was talked about in the video? And it's a Big Mac switch. Okay,
It's the
and I will let
MAC,
you,
right? Is it MAC or is it? MAC?
it's a big, and I'll let you put Big Mac or Big Mac switch, either one, okay? The name of the switch that's talked about in this week's video, the video about AT, and it's a Big Mac. It's a Big Mac
Capital?
switch.
Capital
Okay.
M,
Yeah,
capital M, okay.
Big Mac switch.
Okay.
Or just Big Mac, either one.
Gotcha.
And I'll make that our bonus
MAC,
question.
y'all. There's no, it's not MAC.
It is just MAC, isn't it?
Yes,
It's, well, I just Googled it. It said CK.
CK,
Uh-huh.
MACK?
Yeah, it's MACK.
Okay, well then I'll make that a possibility too, okay? I'll make it MAC, MACK. I only have 4 options of answers I can give. So I can't spell it too many different ways. All right,
All right, we're good.
Rachel. My suggestion to you is to go on Region 11 and try to get into structuring the classroom through visual strategies. That's number 1.
Yes.
Used to be
Okay.
taught Bill Varley, but now it's Michael, what's his face?
Oh, yeah.
You'll know who I'm talking about once you meet him.
Okay. Well,
You know
thank you.
what? You should also go through to your colleagues' rooms and ask them, do you have stuff in your cabinets that you haven't used in years? And you can get all those manipulatives and make your boxes, like your work task boxes with that stuff practically free. Don't go and spend a lot of money before you scavenge, because
Yeah.
you know every teacher has cabinets full of stuff that they never ever use.
that's true. Good point, Michelle.
Stock up on task folders and
Stickies, stickers.
Velcro, rolls and rolls of Velcro,
Ask special ed for
lamination.
special ed department for Velcro. Maybe they'll provide it.
Yeah.
'Cause you'll
We had
need-
a laminator in our department, so see if you have one there. I mean, we had one that was specific to special ed because we used it so much, but you know, those things. And then you know, teacher pay teacher. I used a lot of,
A lot of Pinterest too.
I can't remember the name of the website I'd go to get stuff. But yeah, just find, I mean, and then like toothpicks, I mean, not toothpicks, the tongue depressors, the
Tongue
big,
depressors,
yeah,
yeah.
those for matching things. I used a lot of lids of the paper boxes, you know,
For trays, yeah.
yeah, I use those as trays to set stuff in, floral foam, all kinds of stuff. Hot glue. Stock up on all that because you'll need that. Yeah. So do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into? Like,
A little. She said that they were mainly autistic children, which I have had autistic children in my general ed class. So
definitely structuring the classroom because that's all autism based. So
but I've never had like a child that was schizophrenic and had multiple personalities.
I have.
And
I have.
so it's going to be
Same
interesting.
here.
And then I'm getting a kindergartner who's nonverbal. So that'll be new as well, which I also found out a few minutes ago. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, well, we just forgot to tell you. And I was like, oh, okay.
Goodness.
So I don't want choice.
Oh, protocol brushing. So get with your AT, PT, or OT, PT.
Yeah.
They'll help you come up with some of those
Yes.
calming techniques like the protocol brushing, joint compressions.
Right, the joint compressions.
I mean, there's tons. Motor lab, setting up a motor lab. You gotta have one somewhere
Oh, yes, Motor Lab is awesome.
because there shouldn't be nothing in your classroom. You should have something because I know that teacher didn't buy all that equipment. You can't take it
Have
with the school body.
two desktop computers and then an iPad and then student desks and then my desk. And that's it so far.
I also used a lot of those cardboard trifold like presentation things to do to make cubbies for them, like individualize their space.
So like one of the things for Motor Lab, one of the schools that my children went to is
Hey,
those.
girls, I'm gonna turn off the recording and let y'all keep talking, okay?
Okay.
So everybody else can go, okay? I'm gonna turn off the recording and anybody that's ready to go to say goodnight can go on, okay? Good.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
The big phone books that we used to have that they used to print out, you might be able to find